Good evening, dear listeners. As the day gently melts away into the tranquil embrace of night, I invite you to settle into a comfortable position and let the gentle cadence of my voice guide you into a space of relaxation and calm. Tonight, we shall embark on a journey through time, exploring a topic that may seem intricate and perhaps even tedious at first glance, but rest assured, it is one that holds a unique beauty in its meticulousness and precision. Imagine the warm glow of the sun casting long shadows over the ancient sands of Egypt, where towering obelisks, monuments of granite, carved with the stories and triumphs of pharaohs, stand proudly against the azure sky. These magnificent structures were not only symbols of divine connection but also feats of engineering that required exceptional care and attention to detail in their alignment. This evening, we will delve into the soothing world of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists. As we meander through this serene narrative, we will uncover the methods used by ancient architects and surveyors, the tools that aided them in their quest for perfection, and the rituals that surrounded these monumental tasks. You will come to appreciate the profound respect that the ancient Egyptians held for their craft, as they sought to align these towering structures with celestial bodies and cardinal directions, ensuring harmony between the earth and the heavens. We will begin by painting a vivid picture of the obelisks themselves, standing tall and proud, adorned with hieroglyphs that tell tales of gods and kings. From there, we will gently transition into the processes involved in their alignment, exploring how these ancient engineers employed the stars, simple tools, and their own keen observations to achieve remarkable precision. Next, we will delve into the checklists that guided their work, simple yet effective. These lists were a testament to the importance of thoroughness and diligence in every step of the construction process. As we explore these checklists, allow your mind to drift and relax, picturing the dedicated artisans and laborers as they meticulously followed their guidelines, ensuring that each stone was perfectly placed. Throughout our exploration, I encourage you to let go of any thoughts or worries of the day. Allow the gentle rhythm of the stories to lull you into a state of peace, as we discover the harmony that ancient Egyptians sought in their monumental creations. By the end of our journey, you will not only have learned about the ancient practices surrounding obelisk alignment but will also find that the soothing nature of their dedication can bring a sense of tranquility to your own mind. So, take a deep breath, feel the weight of the day lift off your shoulders, and let the soothing sounds of history guide you into a restful state. As we prepare to dive deeper into the fascinating yet peaceful world of ancient Egyptian engineering, I invite you to close your eyes if you wish and let the calm envelop you. The stars have guided civilizations for ages, and tonight, they will guide us through an exploration of alignment and precision that resonates through the ages. Now, let us begin our serene journey into the meticulous history of obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists, where the echoes of the past meet the calm of the present. The history of obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists in ancient Egypt is a subject fraught with tedium, yet it remains a critical aspect of the architectural practices of one of the most formidable civilizations in human history. The earliest records of obelisks date back to the reign of Pharaoh Snefru, around 2613 to 2589 BCE, during the 4th dynasty of the Old Kingdom. The construction of obelisks was not merely a display of engineering prowess but also served a religious purpose, symbolizing the sun god Ra. The process of erecting an obelisk began with the selection of the granite quarry, often located in Aswan, known for its high-quality stone. The quarrying techniques employed during this period were primitive by modern standards, relying on copper tools and wooden sledges. The architectural details of an obelisk included a rectangular base, tapering sides, and a pyramidal top, which was meticulously designed to catch the first rays of the sun at dawn. Once the stone was extracted, it was transported to the intended site, which was often within the precincts of a temple dedicated to a particular deity. The alignment of the obelisk was crucial. It was positioned to ensure that its shadow would fall upon the temple during solstices and equinoxes, an alignment that required precise calculations based on celestial observations. The administrative procedures for such alignment involved a cadre of skilled laborers, overseers, and scribes who were responsible for documenting every step of the process. One can refer to the records from the reign of Pharaoh Hatshepsut, 1479 to 1458 BCE, who erected several obelisks at Karnak Temple. The construction of her obelisks involved meticulous planning and documentation, including the creation of inspection checklists. These checklists, inscribed on papyrus, outlined the necessary steps for verifying both the dimensions and the alignment of the obelisk. Such documents provided instructions on the use of simple tools such as plumb bobs and leveling instruments, which were rudimentary but effective for the period. Daily routines of laborers involved the repetitive tasks of transporting stones, setting up scaffolding, and engaging in rituals to appease the gods, thus ensuring the favor of the deities throughout the construction process. The laborers often worked in teams, with each member assigned specific responsibilities, such as hauling stones, chiseling inscriptions, or measuring alignment. The role of the overseer was critical, as this individual was responsible for the adherence to the inspection checklist, which included the verification of angle measurements and the assessment of the verticality of the obelisk. The verification of alignment was a complex process, often involving the use of the merkit, an ancient Egyptian timekeeping and surveying instrument resembling a plumb line. This device allowed architects to establish a north-south axis, which was essential for the proper orientation of the obelisk. By employing the merkit, builders could align the structure with the cardinal points, a task that required both skill and careful observation of the stars. During the New Kingdom, particularly under the reign of Ramesses II, 1279 to 1213 BCE, the construction and alignment of obelisks reached new heights. The pharaoh commissioned the erection of several monumental obelisks in Luxor and Karnak, and the administrative procedures for these projects became more formalized. The inspection checklists during this period expanded to include additional criteria, such as the assessment of the obelisk's surface finish and the accuracy of hieroglyphic inscriptions, which were intended to convey the pharaoh's divine authority. The inspection process often involved multiple layers of oversight. Initial inspections were conducted by skilled artisans who were responsible for the initial alignment and structural integrity. Following this, a secondary inspection was performed by a panel of overseers who would evaluate the findings of the artisans. Any discrepancies would necessitate a re-evaluation of the alignment, often leading to further adjustments. These adjustments were documented meticulously in the records of the temple scribe, who maintained an archive of all construction activities. The alignment verification procedures were not solely focused on the physical aspects of the obelisk, they also incorporated spiritual components. Ritualistic practices were integral to the process, as priests would perform ceremonies to invoke the blessings of the gods upon the structure. These rituals often involved offerings and prayers, which were recorded in the temple annals alongside the technical specifications of the obelisk. As time progressed into the later periods of ancient Egyptian history, the significance of obelisks continued to evolve, yet the procedures for their construction and alignment remained largely unchanged. By the Ptolemaic period, 305 to 30 BCE, the administrative processes surrounding obelisk construction had become increasingly bureaucratic. The introduction of more sophisticated record-keeping practices led to the establishment of specialized offices dedicated to the oversight of monumental construction projects. One notable figure during this period was Ptolemy II Philadelphus, 283 to 246 BCE, who commissioned the transport of several obelisks from Egypt to locations around the Mediterranean, including Rome. The inspection checklists for these obelisks included elaborate details concerning the methods of transportation, with particular emphasis on maintaining alignment during the journey. The use of large wooden ships, specially designed to carry the weight and height of the obelisks, was documented with precision, ensuring that the structures remained vertical and true throughout the voyage. The verification procedures for obelisk alignment during this period began to incorporate more advanced astronomical observations, utilizing techniques that involved the alignment of the obelisk with the heliacal rising of specific stars. This practice was indicative of an increasing sophistication in the understanding of celestial mechanics among the ancient Egyptians. The administrative procedures for these astronomical observations required the coordination of skilled astronomers and priests, who worked in tandem to ensure that the obelisks maintained their intended alignment. In addition to the architectural and astronomical considerations, the daily routines of laborers in the Ptolemaic period exhibited a continued emphasis on strict adherence to the inspection checklists. Workers would rise before dawn, performing the daily rituals to honor the deities before embarking on their labor. Tasks were assigned based on a hierarchical structure, with skilled artisans overseeing apprentices, ensuring that the procedures documented in the checklists were followed meticulously. As the Roman period approached, the practice of erecting obelisks became more widespread, particularly as the Romans sought to appropriate aspects of Egyptian culture. The Roman emperors often transported obelisks to Rome, where they were erected in prominent locations, serving both decorative and commemorative purposes. The administrative procedures for these projects, however, reflected a shift in priorities. The focus on alignment verification began to diminish in favor of aesthetic considerations. Despite this decline in the rigor of alignment verification procedures, remnants of the previous practices remained evident in the documentation and inspections performed during the transportation process. The Roman engineers, though highly skilled, often relied on the existing Egyptian knowledge of alignment, employing the ancient methods even as they introduced their own innovations. In conclusion, The history of the ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists serves as a testament to the meticulous nature of ancient engineering practices. From the early days of the Old Kingdom to the complexities of the Ptolemaic period, the processes evolved to reflect the cultural and administrative changes of the time. Yet, throughout this evolution, the core principles of alignment verification remained consistent, underscoring the importance of precision in monumental architecture. The legacy of these procedures continues to echo through history, albeit in a manner that is often overlooked, buried beneath the weight of the very stones they helped to erect. The construction of obelisks, which were monumental stone pillars primarily erected in ancient Egypt, necessitated a precise understanding of both the materials employed and the methods utilized to ensure their durability and alignment. The material most commonly used for the construction of obelisks was granite, particularly from the Aswan quarries, which provided high-quality stone characterized by its fine grain and durability. The average weight of a granite obelisk ranged from 200 to 300 tons, with measurements often reaching approximately 30 to 33 meters in height, although some examples, such as the Lateran obelisk in Rome, soared to an impressive 32.18 meters, excluding its base. The extraction of granite began with careful planning and meticulous quarrying techniques. Workers utilized copper tools, such as chisels and saws, to carve the stone, employing a series of wooden wedges soaked in water to facilitate the fracturing of the granite. Once the desired blocks were detached from the quarry face, they were transported via sledges, which were lubricated with water to reduce friction. Archaeological evidence suggests that these sledges were pulled by teams of laborers, sometimes numbering in the hundreds, across the desert sands toward the Nile River. The distance from Aswan to the river was approximately 800 kilometers, requiring significant logistical foresight. Once delivered to the riverbanks, the granite blocks were floated on wooden barges down the Nile to their designated locations. Historical records indicate that this transport process was often conducted during the inundation season, which lasted from June to September, as the swollen river facilitated easier movement of heavy cargo. Upon arrival at the construction site, the blocks were carefully unloaded and positioned according to intricate alignment specifications. The alignment of obelisks was of paramount importance, not merely for aesthetic purposes but also for religious significance. The alignment procedures involved the use of tools such as plumb bobs and leveling instruments. The use of a merkit, an ancient Egyptian tool resembling a sighting instrument, allowed priests and architects to achieve precise north-south alignments, crucial for both calendrical observances and ritual practices. The typical alignment tolerance was within 1 degree of true north, which necessitated extensive measurement and verification. Maintenance procedures for obelisks were equally systematic and meticulous. Regular inspections were mandated to assess the integrity of the stone and the inscriptions carved upon it. These inspections often involved a thorough visual examination, along with the use of simple tools to test for signs of erosion or structural weaknesses. Historical texts from the reign of Pharaoh Ramses II, circa 1279 to 1213 BCE, indicate that maintenance included the application of oil to the surface of the obelisks to protect the stone and the hieroglyphics from the harsh desert climate. In addition to visual inspections, the maintenance of obelisks also required the recording of environmental conditions. Financial records from the period reveal that royal scribes kept meticulous accounts of the expenses associated with such maintenance. For instance, a typical maintenance budget allocated by the royal treasury could amount to several hundred deben of silver, each deben equating to approximately 91 grams, an amount reflecting not only the labor costs but also the materials used for upkeep. Personnel involved in the construction and maintenance of obelisks included a variety of specialized roles. The chief architect, often referred to as the Chief of Works, in hieroglyphs, HRYTP, held ultimate responsibility for the project. This individual was typically a highly educated member of the priestly class, possessing extensive knowledge of geometry and astronomy. Assisting the chief architect was a cadre of skilled laborers known as stone masons, in hieroglyphs, SM, who were responsible for the precise cutting and shaping of the granite blocks. Records indicate that a team of approximately 40 masons would typically be assigned to a single obelisk, working in shifts to complete the task efficiently. Moreover, the labor force was supplemented by a contingent of administrative personnel tasked with logistics and resource management. These individuals maintained detailed records of the materials sourced, labor hours expended, and the overall financial outlay. Job descriptions outlined the responsibilities of each role, often detailing the necessary skills and qualifications. For instance, laborers were expected to possess physical strength and stamina, while masons were required to have training in stoneworking techniques. Financial records from the New Kingdom period, particularly during the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose III, reveal a complex system for budgeting and allocating resources for obelisk construction. Costs associated with a single obelisk included quarrying expenses, transportation fees, and labor costs. A typical obelisk project budget might include upwards of 12,000 deben for labor alone, with additional expenses for tools and materials amounting to another 5,000 deben. The total investment in such projects could easily exceed 20,000 deben, reflecting the significant economic commitment required by the state. The financial implications of obelisk construction did not solely concern the immediate costs. Long-term maintenance expenses were also significant. Annual allocation for upkeep was often included in the royal budget, with maintenance funds specifically earmarked for the care of monumental structures, including obelisks. These records indicate that maintenance could account for as much as 10% of the total construction cost over a period of several decades, with specific mentions of regular inspections and repairs necessitating additional funding. The technical specifications of obelisks were standardized to a degree, with common dimensions and proportions that adhered to cultural and religious norms. Most obelisks were rectangular in cross-section, tapering toward the top, which was often capped with a pyramidion, a small pyramid-shaped stone that was typically gilded or inscribed with religious symbols. The typical dimensions for a standard obelisk were approximately 4:1 in height-to-base ratio, with a base measuring around 2 meters on each side. The pyramidion itself, often about 1 meter in height, was meticulously crafted to ensure that it fit seamlessly atop the obelisk. Inscriptions on obelisks were also subject to specific guidelines, which dictated the style and content of the hieroglyphs. These inscriptions often celebrated the achievements of the pharaoh or recorded significant historical events. The average inscription could consist of up to 400 individual hieroglyphs, meticulously carved to a depth of 2 to 3 centimeters to ensure visibility and longevity. The use of red and black paint, derived from natural minerals, was common in these inscriptions, adhering to strict artistic conventions that defined ancient Egyptian art. Throughout the construction and maintenance processes, an emphasis on precision and adherence to religious and cultural practices remained paramount. The alignment verification procedures, which began even before the first stone was quarried, continued to be a point of focus throughout the life of the obelisk. Inspections were often documented in detailed reports that included measurements of angles and distances, reflecting a rigorous commitment to accuracy that characterized ancient Egyptian engineering. In conclusion, the history of ancient Egyptian obelisk construction embodies a legacy of meticulous planning, skilled labor, and intricate financial management. The obelisks themselves stand as monumental testaments to the architectural prowess of the ancient Egyptians, while the procedural frameworks established for their construction and maintenance reveal a culture deeply invested in preserving its monumental heritage. The alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists, though seemingly mundane, were crucial to ensuring that these grand structures not only fulfilled their intended religious and cultural functions but also endured for millennia, continuing to evoke the awe of future generations. The construction methods employed in the creation of ancient Egyptian obelisks were both sophisticated and labor-intensive, reflecting the advanced engineering capabilities of the civilization. The primary materials utilized in obelisk construction were granite, basalt, and sandstone. The choice of granite, particularly the red granite from Aswan, was due to its durability and aesthetic appeal. The quarrying process commenced with the selection of appropriate stone blocks, typically measuring approximately 4 meters in height and 2 meters in width, with weights that could exceed 200 tons. Once the stone was identified, workers utilized copper chisels and dolerite balls to extract the blocks from the quarry. The extraction process began around 2500 BCE, during the 4th dynasty, and involved the careful cutting of the stone along natural fissures. It is documented that workers employed wooden wedges, which, upon soaking in water, expanded to facilitate easier extraction. The blocks were then transported along the Nile River, using wooden sledges and flotation techniques, which were well documented in hieroglyphic inscriptions. Upon arrival at the construction site, the blocks underwent further shaping. The typical dimensions of an obelisk were about 30 to 33 meters in height, tapering to an apex that was often adorned with gold leaf, a practice that began in the 18th dynasty around 1550 BCE. The final shaping process involved the use of abrasive materials, including sand, to achieve the desired surface finish. The precision of the cutting and finishing was critical, as any imperfections could have been deemed a bad omen. Maintenance procedures for obelisks were essential for preserving their structural integrity and aesthetic qualities. Given the harsh desert climate, the primary maintenance activities focused on cleaning and repairing any damage caused by environmental factors over time. Routine inspections were conducted, often coinciding with religious festivals, to ensure that the obelisks remained in pristine condition. Records from the New Kingdom period indicate that these inspections were formalized, with scribes documenting the results in detailed scrolls. The maintenance of obelisks also involved the application of protective coatings. Historical texts reveal that a mixture of olive oil and resins, such as myrrh, was used to coat the surfaces, which not only provided a protective layer against the elements but also enhanced the visual appeal of the structures. This practice, dating back to the 12th dynasty, circa 1991 to 1802 BCE, highlights the Egyptians' understanding of material properties and their foresight in preserving monumental architecture. Financial records related to the construction and maintenance of obelisks reveal the extensive resources required for such undertakings. The financial oversight was typically managed by a group of high-ranking officials, including the vizier, who was responsible for the allocation of funds and resources. A detailed examination of papyrus scrolls from the reign of Pharaoh Ramses II reveals that expenditures for a single obelisk could amount to approximately 1,500 deben, a unit of weight equivalent to around 91 grams of silver. This financial burden was not only a reflection of material costs but also the labor expenses associated with the thousands of workers involved in the project. The costs associated with obelisk construction were meticulously documented, with records indicating that the labor force could exceed 1,000 workers for a single project. These workers were typically divided into teams, each with specific roles ranging from quarrying to transportation, shaping, and erecting the obelisk. For instance, the quarrying team comprised skilled stone cutters, while the transportation team consisted of laborers who maneuvered the heavy blocks onto sledges. Further specialization was evident in the erection team, which included engineers and masons trained in the precise techniques required to raise the obelisk to its upright position. Personnel involved in the construction of obelisks were often organized into hierarchies, with designated roles spanning various aspects of the project. The chief architect, known as the chief of the works, was responsible for overseeing the entire construction process. Underneath the chief architect were the foremen, who managed day-to-day operations and ensured compliance with the technical specifications outlined in the architectural plans. The labor force primarily consisted of seasonal workers, many of whom were conscripted from local populations and were required to fulfill periods of labor as a form of taxation. Job descriptions were distinctly defined, with each role carrying specific responsibilities. For instance, stone masons were tasked with the precise shaping of the obelisk surfaces, while transporters were responsible for the logistics of moving the heavy stones from the quarry to the construction site. In contrast, the engineers focused on the structural integrity of the obelisk during the erection phase, ensuring that the weight was evenly distributed to prevent tilting or collapse. Technical specifications for the construction of obelisks were rigorously maintained, emphasizing the need for precision in measurements. It was common practice to employ a plumb bob and leveling techniques to ensure that the obelisk was erected vertically. The angle of the apex was typically designed to be around 89 degrees, creating a taper that enhanced the visual impact of the structure. The base of the obelisk was also carefully constructed, often ranging from 5 to 7 meters square to provide a robust foundation that could support the immense weight of the stone. The alignment of the obelisks was another critical aspect of their construction, necessitating the use of astronomical observations. Ancient Egyptians utilized a method known as site alignment, where the sun's position at certain times of the day was used to determine cardinal directions. This practice was essential in ensuring that the obelisk was oriented correctly, enhancing its symbolic connection to the divine and the cosmos. The meticulous nature of the construction process extended to the inscriptions that adorned the surfaces of obelisks. Hieroglyphics, typically carved into the stone, contained royal decrees, religious dedications, and historical records, serving both decorative and communicative purposes. The inscriptions were often composed in a standardized format, with careful attention paid to the alignment and spacing of characters, ensuring readability from a distance. In summary, the tedious history of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists reveals an intricate tapestry of construction methods, materials, maintenance procedures, financial oversight, personnel organization, and technical specifications. Each element was interwoven into the broader narrative of Egypt's monumental architecture, reflecting the civilization's values, religious beliefs, and engineering prowess. The obelisks stand as enduring symbols of this legacy, encapsulating both the triumphs and challenges faced by the ancient Egyptians as they strove to create structures that would withstand the test of time. The construction of obelisks in ancient Egypt involved a meticulous process that combined advanced engineering with a profound understanding of material properties. The primary materials utilized in the creation of these monolithic structures were granite, limestone, and diorite, each chosen for its durability and suitability for monumental architecture. The granite, primarily sourced from quarries in Aswan, was particularly favored due to its hardness and aesthetic appeal, exhibiting an array of pink to red hues that contributed to the visual grandeur of the obelisks. The extraction of granite blocks commenced with the use of copper tools, such as chisels and saws, which were employed to create vertical cuts around the desired stone. By 2500 BCE, the Egyptians had developed a technique that involved heating the rock through controlled fire and then rapidly cooling it with water, causing the stone to fracture along the cuts. This method, while labor-intensive, proved effective in producing large blocks, typically measuring 4 meters in height and weighing upwards of 30 tons. Following extraction, the blocks were transported via sledges, which were lubricated with water to reduce friction on the sandy paths leading to the construction sites. Once the granite blocks arrived at the construction site, they underwent a series of shaping procedures. Workers utilized pounding stones and wooden mallets to refine the edges and surfaces of the obelisks. The average obelisk stood between 20 and 30 meters tall upon completion, with a base width of approximately 2.5 meters. To ensure stability and alignment, extensive planning was necessary prior to the erection of each obelisk, which involved detailed calculations of center of gravity and weight distribution. Maintenance of obelisks was another critical aspect of their longevity. The Egyptians devised a systematic approach to regular inspections and upkeep, which was documented in various administrative records. As early as 1500 BCE, there is evidence of maintenance crews being assigned specifically for the care of obelisks, which included cleaning, repairing any damage, and ensuring that the surrounding areas were clear of debris. Maintenance procedures often involved the application of a mixture of water and fine sand to polish the surface of the obelisks, enhancing their reflective qualities under the sun. Financial records from the reign of Pharaoh Ramses II, who ruled from 1279 to 1213 BCE, provide insight into the costs associated with the construction and maintenance of obelisks. Detailed accounting ledgers indicate that a single obelisk could cost upwards of 40,000 deben, a unit of measurement equivalent to 1.1 kilograms of silver. This accounted for labor costs, material procurement, and transportation expenses. For instance, in 1260 BCE, one ledger entry details the expenditure of 15,000 deben on granite quarrying, alongside 5,000 deben for the wages of skilled stoneworkers, who were typically compensated at a rate of 1 deben per day. Personnel involved in the construction and maintenance of obelisks were categorized into various roles, each with specific job descriptions. The chief architect, known as the Chief of Stone, was responsible for overseeing the entire project, from planning to execution. This position required extensive training in geometry and engineering principles, as well as a deep understanding of religious significance tied to the obelisk's alignment with celestial bodies. Under the chief architect were a number of skilled workers, including quarrymen, who specialized in extracting and shaping stones, and masons, tasked with the intricate work of carving hieroglyphs and inscriptions into the obelisks. Additionally, laborers known as stone movers were essential for the transportation of the massive blocks, often employing hundreds of workers to drag sledges across the desert. The organizational structure was further supplemented by a cadre of inspectors, whose role was to verify the quality of the stone and the adherence to alignment specifications prior to the installation of the obelisk. Technical specifications for obelisks were rigorously established, ensuring that each structure met the required standards for height, base dimensions, and orientation. Obelisks were typically erected with a slight taper, reducing the width from the base to the apex, which contributed to their iconic silhouette. The angle of this taper was crucial. Most obelisks were constructed with an angle of approximately 6 to 10 degrees, compensating for wind resistance and enhancing stability. In terms of alignment, ancient Egyptians adhered to strict guidelines that dictated the orientation of obelisks in relation to the cardinal points. This was achieved through the use of simple tools such as gnomons and plumb lines. A gnomon, essentially a vertical pole, was erected to cast a shadow, which would be measured to determine the precise east-west axis. The alignment process was further refined through observation of celestial events, particularly the rising and setting of the sun, which were considered auspicious times for erecting such structures. The obelisk's apex, often adorned with a pyramidal shape known as a pyramidion, was typically coated in gold leaf, further enhancing its visibility and symbolic significance. The gold surface was not only a decorative element but also served to reflect sunlight, creating a beacon of divine light that connected the earth to the heavens. The dimensions of the pyramidion generally represented a smaller scale of the obelisk, often measuring around 1 meter in height and 0.5 meters at the base. In conclusion, the construction, maintenance, and financial management of obelisks in ancient Egypt reveal a sophisticated society that placed significant value on monumental architecture. The interplay of labor, resources, and technical knowledge culminated in the creation of structures that were not only visually striking but also imbued with profound cultural and religious meaning. Records from various periods, notably the New Kingdom, provide a comprehensive view of the meticulous processes involved in obelisk construction and the societal structures that supported such endeavors. The enduring presence of these structures serves as a testament to the ingenuity and dedication of the ancient Egyptians, as they sought to immortalize their legacy in stone. The construction of obelisks in ancient Egypt involved a meticulous process that combined advanced engineering with a profound understanding of material properties. The primary materials utilized in the creation of these monolithic structures were granite, limestone, and diorite, each chosen for its durability and suitability for monumental architecture. The granite, primarily sourced from quarries in Aswan, was particularly favored due to its hardness and aesthetic appeal, exhibiting an array of colors from deep pink to reddish brown, which added a majestic quality to these towering structures. The first known obelisk, erected during the reign of Pharaoh Senusret I around 1971 to 1926 BCE, marked the beginning of this architectural tradition. Over the centuries, the technique of obelisk construction evolved, culminating in some of the most remarkable examples seen in ancient Egypt. For instance, the great obelisk of Hatshepsut, which stands in Karnak, was quarried around 1478 BCE and stands at an impressive height of 30.5 meters, approximately 100 feet, weighing more than 300 tons. Such dimensions required not only exceptional engineering skills but also an organized labor force, estimated to be in the thousands, who worked in shifts to transport and erect these monumental structures. The quarrying process itself was a marvel of ancient engineering. Workers utilized copper tools to extract massive blocks from the bedrock. One technique involved creating a series of deep holes along the intended cut line, into which wooden wedges were inserted. These wedges were then soaked in water, causing them to expand and fracture the granite along the grain. Once the blocks were freed, they were shaped on site, carefully chiseled to create the desired taper and smooth surface. The precision required in this process is evident in the nearly flawless finish of many obelisks, which were often inscribed with hieroglyphs detailing the achievements of the pharaoh or invoking the favor of the gods. Transporting these massive blocks was another formidable challenge. The Egyptians employed a combination of sledges and lubrication techniques to move the stone overland. Recent archaeological findings suggest that they would pour water on the sand in front of the sledges, reducing friction and allowing teams of laborers to pull these heavy loads with relative ease. A notable case study is the transportation of the Lateran obelisk, which originally stood in Heliopolis and was later moved to Rome by Emperor Constantius II in 357 CE. This obelisk, weighing over 455 tons and standing at 32 meters, approximately 105 feet, exemplifies the ingenuity required to move such immense structures across vast distances. Once the obelisk arrived at its intended site, the erection process commenced. This involved digging a deep pit, where the obelisk would be placed upright. The Egyptians utilized a system of levers and wooden scaffolding to gradually raise the obelisk into position. They would insert wooden beams into a series of holes drilled into the base of the obelisk, and as they gradually lifted it, additional blocks were added to support it until it was standing at its full height. The process required meticulous planning and coordination, with teams of laborers working in unison to ensure the stability and alignment of the monument. Historically, obelisks were not merely decorative, they served as important cultural and religious symbols. The ancient Egyptians believed that obelisks connected the earth with the divine, representing the rays of the sun and honoring the sun god Ra. The inscriptions found on many obelisks often included dedications to gods, pharaohs, and significant historical events, thereby providing a record of the civilization's achievements and beliefs. For example, the inscriptions on the obelisk of Thutmose III, erected around 1450 BCE, recount his military triumphs and divine favor, reinforcing the pharaoh's divine right to rule. The legacy of Egyptian obelisks extends far beyond their original geographic and temporal context. Many obelisks have been transported to various parts of the world, including Rome, Istanbul, and London, where they continue to inspire awe and fascination. The Vatican's St. Peter's Square features an Egyptian obelisk brought to Rome in 37 CE, originally erected in Heliopolis, standing at 25.5 meters, approximately 84 feet, tall, and symbolizing the might and reach of the Roman Empire. In conclusion, the construction of obelisks in ancient Egypt represents a remarkable interplay of engineering, artistry, and cultural significance. The choice of materials, the techniques used in quarrying and transport, and the symbolic meanings imbued in these structures reveal the sophistication of ancient Egyptian civilization. As we continue to study these monumental feats, we gain deeper insights into the values, beliefs, and technological accomplishments of one of history's most fascinating cultures. The construction of obelisks in ancient Egypt was a process that involved various construction methods and materials, meticulously documented in both hieroglyphics and later inscriptions. The primary material utilized for obelisk construction was granite, particularly from the quarries of Aswan, located approximately 900 kilometers south of Cairo. The granite blocks used for obelisks typically measured around 4 meters in height and weighed approximately 100 tons. The extraction of these massive stones was a laborious task that employed various tools, including copper chisels, wooden sledges, and levers. The transportation of the granite blocks from the quarries to the construction site was achieved through a combination of sledges and waterways. Records indicate that the stones were often floated on the Nile River during periods of annual flooding, which facilitated their movement. Once at the construction site, workers employed ramps made of mud brick and limestone chippings to elevate the stones into their vertical positions. The obelisk's final alignment was verified using simple tools such as plumb bobs and leveling instruments made from reed. Once an obelisk was erected, it required regular maintenance to preserve its structural integrity and aesthetic appearance. Maintenance procedures included periodic inspections to check for weathering and erosion, particularly from sand and wind. By the New Kingdom period, circa 1550 to 1070 BCE, it became standard practice to apply a protective coating of fine limestone dust mixed with water to the surface of the obelisk, which helped to mitigate the effects of environmental wear. This coating was reapplied every 3 to 5 years, depending on the geographical location and exposure to the elements. Financial records pertaining to the construction and maintenance of obelisks were meticulously kept by the royal treasury. For instance, during the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose III, circa 1479 to 1425 BCE, an expenditure of approximately 200,000 deben of silver was recorded for the construction of 2 obelisks at Karnak Temple. Each obelisk's construction cost included not only the material and labor but also allowances for food and provisions for the workforce. It is estimated that each obelisk required the labor of approximately 1,000 workers over a period of 2 years, which translates to a significant investment in human resources. The personnel involved in obelisk construction and maintenance included various specialized roles. The chief architect, known as the overseer of works, was responsible for the overall planning and execution of the project. This individual typically had extensive experience in engineering and was often appointed from the ranks of high-ranking officials within the royal court. Under the chief architect were several foremen, or overseers of labor, who managed groups of skilled and unskilled laborers. These workers were categorized into stonecutters, transporters, and masons, with specific job descriptions detailing their roles and responsibilities. Stonecutters were tasked with extracting the granite from quarries, using chisels and sledges to shape the obelisk to its desired dimensions. Transporters, equipped with knowledge of hydraulic engineering, designed and operated the sledges and any necessary irrigation techniques to facilitate the movement of the massive stones. Masons were responsible for the final shaping of the obelisk and the carving of hieroglyphics and inscriptions that adorned its surface. Each of these roles was critical to the successful completion of the project and was filled by individuals who had undergone extensive training in their respective crafts. Technical specifications for the obelisks were standardized to ensure uniformity across various constructions. The ideal obelisk was typically four-sided, tapering from a square base to a pyramidal apex, with a height-to-base ratio of approximately 10:1. Most obelisks were inscribed with hieroglyphs detailing the achievements of the pharaohs, religious dedications, or commemorative texts. The inscriptions were typically engraved to a depth of 2 to 3 centimeters, ensuring their visibility and durability over time. Notably, the largest obelisk ever erected was the Lateran obelisk, originally constructed during the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose I, circa 1506 to 1493 BCE. This monumental structure stands at 32 meters tall and weighs approximately 455 tons. Its construction involved advanced engineering techniques, including the use of counterweights and pulleys, which facilitated the lifting process. The later transportation of the obelisk to Rome in 357 CE under Emperor Constantius II was another remarkable feat of engineering, solidifying the obelisk's lasting legacy. In addition to the physical construction and alignment verification processes, the ancient Egyptians also placed great importance on the ceremonial aspects surrounding the erection of obelisks. Rituals were conducted to invoke the favor of the gods, often involving offerings and prayers led by high priests. These ceremonies were documented in temple records, emphasizing the religious significance of obelisks as symbols of divine power and authority. The alignment of obelisks was often of astronomical significance, aligning with celestial events such as the solstices and equinoxes. The Egyptians utilized rudimentary astronomical instruments, such as the merkit, to determine the cardinal points accurately. The process of alignment verification involved extensive calculations and adjustments, often taking several days to finalize. The use of surveys and markers on the ground to establish alignment was a common practice, leading to a high degree of precision. Furthermore, the inspection checklists utilized by the overseers included a series of criteria to assess the obelisk's condition and alignment. These checklists typically encompassed categories such as structural integrity, surface condition, and alignment accuracy. Specific measurements, such as the angle of inclination and the verticality of the obelisk, were recorded in detail, ensuring that any discrepancies could be addressed promptly. The legacy of ancient Egyptian obelisks continues to be a subject of study for archaeologists and historians alike. The meticulous documentation of construction methods, materials, and alignment verification procedures provides a wealth of information regarding the technological and engineering capabilities of the time. The enduring presence of these monumental structures serves as a testament to the dedication and skill of the ancient Egyptian civilization. In conclusion, the construction and maintenance of obelisks in ancient Egypt were complex processes that involved various methodologies, financial considerations, specialized personnel, and technical specifications. The records from this period provide invaluable insights into the civilization's values, beliefs, and technological achievements. As we continue to analyze these monumental structures, we gain a deeper understanding of the cultural significance and enduring legacy of ancient Egypt. The construction of obelisks in ancient Egypt was a monumental endeavor that showcased the civilization's engineering prowess and artistic achievements. This intricate process involved a series of well-coordinated steps that combined advanced quarrying techniques, transportation logistics, and precise positioning. The primary material utilized for obelisk construction was granite, particularly sourced from the quarries of Aswan, which are located approximately 900 kilometers south of Cairo along the Nile River. Extraction and quarrying techniques. The granite blocks used for obelisks typically measured around 4 meters in height and weighed approximately 100 tons, although some blocks could weigh up to 200 tons. Extracting these massive stones was no simple task. Quarry workers employed a technique known as plug and feather to create fissures in the granite. This method involved drilling holes into the stone and inserting wooden pegs, which were then soaked in water. As the wood expanded, it created cracks in the granite, allowing the workers to break off large sections of stone. This process required skilled labor and precise execution, often taking weeks to extract a single block. Transportation of obelisks. Once the granite blocks were quarried, the next significant challenge was transportation. The ancient Egyptians devised ingenious methods to move these colossal stones. Workers would cut wooden sledges and place the granite blocks on them. To facilitate movement, they poured water on the sand in front of the sledges, reducing friction. This technique is documented in various ancient inscriptions, including wall carvings found in the tomb of an unknown pharaoh. One remarkable case study involves the transportation of the Lateran obelisk, originally erected in Heliopolis by Pharaoh Ramses II around 1250 BCE. This obelisk, which stands at an impressive 32 meters tall, was transported to Rome in 357 CE by Emperor Constantius II. Historical records indicate that the journey took several months, during which the obelisk was carefully maneuvered across the Mediterranean Sea, highlighting the engineering capabilities of the Romans, who adapted Egyptian techniques for their own monumental projects. Erection and alignment of obelisks. The process of erecting an obelisk was equally complex. Once the stone had arrived at its intended site, often at temples or significant urban centers, the construction crew would dig a deep pit into which the base of the obelisk would be placed. Using a series of ramps and levers, the workers would gradually raise the stone upright. A notable example is the Washington Monument, which, although built much later in the 19th century, draws inspiration from the ancient Egyptian technique of erecting obelisks. Egyptians paid particular attention to the alignment of the obelisks with cardinal points, which held significant religious and astronomical meaning. The ancient Egyptians believed that the obelisks were a means of connecting the earth with the divine, representing the sun god Ra. As a result, precise measurements were crucial. Historical texts reveal that they used a shadow-based method to determine the correct alignment, ensuring that the obelisk would cast its shadow at specific times of the day, especially during solstices. Historical context and cultural significance. The tradition of obelisk construction dates back to the Old Kingdom, with the earliest known obelisk erected by Pharaoh Snefer around 2600 BCE. However, it was during the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom that the construction of obelisks reached its zenith. Pharaohs such as Hatshepsut and Thutmose III, who ruled in the 15th century BCE, commissioned multiple obelisks to symbolize their power and divine connection. Hatshepsut's obelisks, for instance, were adorned with hieroglyphics that celebrated her reign and divine birth, emphasizing the role of women in ancient Egyptian history. In total, around 30 ancient obelisks are known to have been erected in Egypt, though only a fraction remain today. Many were later transported to other parts of the world, including Rome and Istanbul, where they were repurposed as symbols of power and conquest. This practice illustrates the lasting influence of Egyptian architecture and its cultural significance throughout history. The construction of obelisks was not merely a feat of engineering, it was a reflection of the civilization's values, beliefs, and aspirations. These towering monuments served as a testament to the ancient Egyptians' connection with their gods and their understanding of the cosmos, ultimately forming an enduring legacy that continues to captivate historians and archaeologists alike. The tedious history of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists. Part 6: Regional Variations and Comparisons. As we delve deeper into the intricate labyrinth of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures, it becomes essential to consider the regional variations that arose throughout the vast expanses of ancient Egypt. While the construction of obelisks was a unifying architectural endeavor, the methods of alignment verification were not monolithic. They exhibited significant regional disparities, reflective of local climatic conditions, cultural practices, and available technologies. In Lower Egypt, where the Nile Delta's fertile lands flourished, the obelisks were often erected in urban centers such as Heliopolis and Memphis. These locations benefited from a relatively stable environment, which allowed for more standardized alignment procedures. The priests and laborers in these areas utilized the abundant resources at their disposal, including advanced surveying tools made from wood and stone, to ensure precise alignment with celestial bodies. The use of a plumb line or a gnomon, an upright stick cast in the sun to form a shadow, was commonplace. The gnomon's shadow was meticulously recorded at noon to determine the true north, a method that would later influence navigational practices in various civilizations. In contrast, Upper Egypt exhibited stark variations in alignment verification techniques. The arid climate and rocky terrain of places like Karnak and Thebes necessitated a more rudimentary approach. Here, the reliance on natural landmarks became paramount. The priests often aligned obelisks using prominent mountains or the banks of the Nile as reference points, applying a form of triangulation based on visible topographical features. This method, while less precise than the gnomon technique, was tailored to the specific environmental conditions of the region. Furthermore, the significance of the obelisk's orientation varied from one locality to another. In Nubia, for instance, obelisks were often aligned with the cardinal points but were infused with symbolic meanings that reflected local cosmologies. This blending of practical alignment with spiritual significance illustrates a fascinating intersection of geography and theology, further complicating the standardization of verification procedures across regions. Part 7. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of obelisk alignment verification procedures is inextricably linked to the broader historical context of ancient Egypt, encompassing the Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms. Each era not only witnessed advancements in architectural techniques but also reflected the changing priorities and resources of the society. During the Old Kingdom, circa 2686 to 2181 BCE, the construction of obelisks was primarily initiated under the reign of pharaohs like Snefru and Khufu. The verifications conducted during this time were rudimentary, often relying on simple tools and the intuition of skilled laborers. The emphasis was largely on the obelisk's height and aesthetic appeal rather than its precise alignment. Remarkably, the alignment was often deemed satisfactory if the obelisk stood tall and majestic against the skyline, a direct reflection of the pharaoh's divine authority. However, as we transition into the Middle Kingdom, circa 2055 to 1650 BCE, there emerges a notable shift toward methodological rigor. The introduction of the priesthood's bureaucratic oversight necessitated more standardized procedures for alignment verification. This period saw the development of elaborate inspection checklists, which included detailed criteria such as the angle of the obelisk and its relationship to the sun's path during solstices and equinoxes. This evolution highlights a growing understanding of astronomy and its significance in the alignment of monumental structures. The New Kingdom, circa 1550 to 1070 BCE, marked a pinnacle in the sophistication of obelisk construction and alignment. During this time, pharaohs like Ramses II commissioned grand obelisks that required meticulous planning and execution. By this period, comprehensive bureaucratic regulations had been enacted, mandating that verification procedures include not only celestial alignment but also structural integrity assessments. Inspectors were tasked with ensuring that the verticality of the obelisks was maintained through rigorous physical inspections and the use of more advanced tools, such as leveling instruments. Part 8: Bureaucratic Regulations and Laws. The bureaucratic framework surrounding the verification of obelisk alignment was a testament to the complexity of ancient Egyptian governance. The meticulous nature of record-keeping and the necessity for regulatory oversight were indicative of a society that placed immense value on monumental architecture as a representation of divine power and cultural identity. The laws governing the construction and alignment of obelisks were codified into a series of decrees issued by the pharaohs, often with the involvement of high-ranking officials known as viziers. These decrees outline specific mandates regarding the materials to be used, the required dimensions of the obelisks, and the acceptable methods for alignment verification. For instance, it was strictly enforced that the granite sourced for obelisk construction be quarried from specific sites along the Nile, ensuring consistency in appearance and structural integrity. Additionally, the regulations necessitated that a dedicated team of inspectors be appointed for each obelisk project. This team, composed of skilled artisans, priests, and surveyors, was responsible for overseeing every facet of the construction process. A detailed inspection checklist was created, which included items such as the verification of the obelisk's height, assessment of its base stability, and alignment with celestial bodies. Failure to adhere to these regulations could result in severe penalties, including loss of status or, in extreme cases, exile from the community. Moreover, the bureaucratic process was further complicated by the necessity for continuous reporting. Inspectors were required to submit regular updates to the pharaoh, detailing the progress of the obelisk construction and alignment verification. These reports would typically include diagrams, calculations, and even illustrations depicting the obelisk's alignment in relation to celestial events. Such thorough documentation underscored the ancient Egyptians' commitment to meticulous planning and architectural precision. Part 9: Supply Chain and Logistics. The logistics surrounding the construction and transport of obelisks were equally intricate, requiring comprehensive supply chain management that was advanced for its time. The sheer scale of these monumental structures necessitated the coordination of numerous resources, from the quarrying of granite to the transportation of massive stone blocks across the Nile. The process began with the selection of appropriate quarry sites, predominantly located in Aswan, known for its high-quality granite. The extraction of these stones was labor-intensive, often involving teams of workers using copper tools to carve the massive blocks. Once quarried, the stones were transported downstream on wooden barges, a logistical feat that required careful planning regarding the timing of the Nile's seasonal floods, which could either aid or hinder transportation efforts. Upon reaching their destination, the granite blocks were offloaded and prepared for assembly. The alignment verification processes commenced at this stage, where teams employed rudimentary yet effective methods to ensure the obelisk's verticality. This involved the use of ramps constructed alongside the obelisk site, allowing workers to maneuver blocks into place with relative ease. The ramps were often covered with wet clay or sand to reduce friction, a simple yet ingenious solution that facilitated the heavy lifting required during the construction phase. Furthermore, the supply chain extended beyond mere stone procurement. The labor force, which included not only skilled artisans but also unskilled workers, was organized into hierarchies, with clear delineations of responsibility. This organizational structure ensured that all aspects of construction were overseen effectively, from the quarry to the construction site. Part 10: Record-Keeping Methods. The ancient Egyptians employed various record-keeping methods to document the alignment verification processes and the overall construction of obelisks. These records were crucial for maintaining accountability and ensuring consistency across. The alignment verification procedures for obelisks in ancient Egypt were not monolithic but instead exhibited considerable regional variations, influenced by local customs, geological conditions, and religious practices. For instance, in Upper Egypt, particularly in Thebes, the obelisks were primarily dedicated to the sun god Ammonius, necessitating a specific alignment with the sunset during the solstices. Consequently, the verification procedures here were tailored to ensure precise orientation towards the west, employing a method known as the shadow stick technique. This involved placing a stick vertically into the ground and marking the shadow's endpoint at various times of the day. Inspectors would meticulously record these measurements in a papyrus scroll, detailing the angles and the corresponding times, ensuring the obelisk's alignment was accurate to the minutest degree. In contrast, in Lower Egypt, particularly in Memphis, where the obelisks were often dedicated to Ptah, the god of craftsmen and architects, the alignment verification procedures were less focused on solar events. Instead, these procedures emphasized the cardinal directions, specifically north-south alignment. Here, the inspection process involved the use of a meridian line, a straight line marked on the ground with a series of stones. Inspectors would check the obelisk's shadow at midday, ensuring that it fell along this line. The meticulous nature of this process was reflected in the detailed records kept by the inspectors, noting the specific alignments and any deviations observed. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of obelisk alignment verification procedures can be traced through various dynastic periods of ancient Egypt, each marked by advancements in both technology and bureaucratic oversight. During the Old Kingdom, the construction of obelisks was a relatively straightforward affair, with rudimentary alignment techniques sufficing for the simpler religious practices of the time. The verification processes were informal, often relying on the experience of the workers rather than standardized checklists. As Egypt transitioned into the Middle Kingdom, the introduction of more complex religious rituals necessitated a corresponding sophistication in verification procedures. The rise of centralized power led to the creation of detailed inspection checklists, which must have appeared as early as the 12th dynasty. These checklists, inscribed on stone tablets or papyrus, included criteria such as the obelisk's height, material quality, and alignment precision. Inspectors, often priests or skilled artisans, were charged with the responsibility of adhering to these increasingly stringent guidelines, leading to a more formalized and bureaucratically sanctioned process. By the time of the New Kingdom, the verification procedures had evolved into a highly bureaucratic system with multiple layers of oversight. Inspectors were required to undergo formal training, learning the intricacies of astronomical alignments and the mathematics behind them. Inscriptions from this period reveal a wealth of information, detailing not only the procedures but also the penalties for failing to comply with the regulations. The meticulous documentation of these processes laid the groundwork for future generations, ensuring that the knowledge of alignment verification was systematically preserved. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. Central to the evolution of obelisk alignment verification were the bureaucratic regulations and laws that governed these processes. The pharaoh, as the supreme ruler, established a hierarchy of officials responsible for the construction and inspection of obelisks. This hierarchy included the chief architect, who oversaw all construction projects, and various inspectors who reported directly to him. Each inspector was assigned specific responsibilities, ensuring that no aspect of the alignment verification process was overlooked. Legal texts from the time indicate that inspectors were required to document their findings meticulously, with the possibility of facing severe penalties for negligence. For instance, a scroll from the reign of Pharaoh Hatshepsut outlines a series of punishments for inspectors who failed to report inaccuracies in the obelisk alignment. These punishments ranged from fines to public humiliation, emphasizing the importance placed on accuracy and adherence to bureaucratic procedures. Additionally, the issuance of permits for obelisk construction was tightly regulated. Before any construction could begin, a proposal would have to be submitted to the royal court detailing the intended site, alignment specifications, and the materials to be used. This proposal would then undergo a rigorous review process, ensuring that all planned alignments adhered to the religious and cultural expectations of the time. Only upon receiving official approval could work commence, a process that could take months or even years, depending on the complexity of the project. Supply chain and logistics. The logistics involved in the construction and alignment of obelisks were as intricate as the alignment procedures themselves. The transportation of massive stone blocks, often weighing hundreds of tons, required meticulous planning and coordination. Quarries, such as those in Aswan, were the primary sources of the granite used in obelisk construction. Workers would quarry the stone, using copper tools and wooden sledges, to carve out the massive blocks. These blocks would then be transported down the Nile River on large barges, a process that necessitated careful timing to account for seasonal flooding. Once on site, the blocks would undergo further shaping and polishing. The alignment verification procedure would often commence at this stage, as inspectors checked the positioning of the blocks to ensure they were set to the correct angles. The logistics of this process were intricate, involving a team of skilled laborers who worked in unison, their efforts coordinated by the foreman, who was responsible for ensuring that the work adhered to the established checklists. Moreover, the supply chain extended beyond the stone itself. The tools necessary for both the quarrying and the detailed inspection processes were crafted by skilled artisans, requiring a steady supply of raw materials such as copper and wood. The production of these tools was also regulated, with artisans required to produce detailed records of their output, which would then be submitted to the chief architect's office for review. Record-keeping methods. Record-keeping in ancient Egypt was a highly developed process, especially concerning obelisk construction and alignment verification. The Egyptians utilized papyrus, a plant-based writing material, for most of their documentation. This included everything from construction contracts to detailed inspection checklists. Scribes, who held a prestigious position in society, were responsible for meticulously documenting every aspect of the obelisk verification process. The checklists used by inspectors were often categorized into several sections, including the initial measurements, the materials used, the alignment angles, and any discrepancies noted during the inspection. These records were crucial, not only for ensuring compliance with the established regulations but also for future reference. In some cases, these documents served as historical records, providing insights into the construction techniques and religious significance of the obelisks. In addition to papyrus, stone inscriptions played a vital role in the record-keeping process. Some of the most important alignments and construction milestones were inscribed directly onto the obelisks themselves. These inscriptions served a dual purpose. They provided a permanent record of the obelisk's alignment and construction details and acted as a testament to the pharaoh's divine connection and power. The meticulous nature of record-keeping extended to the archiving of documents. Special repositories, often located within temple complexes, were established to store these records securely. Scribes employed various organizational systems, including chronological and thematic categorization, ensuring that records could be easily retrieved for future reference. The preservation of these documents was taken seriously, as they were considered vital for maintaining the cultural and religious continuity of ancient Egyptian society. In conclusion, the history of obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists in ancient Egypt reveals a complex interplay of regional variations, bureaucratic regulations, logistical challenges, and meticulous record-keeping practices. The evolution of these procedures reflects not only advancements in technology and knowledge but also the deep cultural significance of obelisks within the context of ancient Egyptian society. As we delve deeper into this seemingly mundane yet intricately detailed history, we uncover a fascinating tapestry of human endeavor, creativity, and reverence for the divine. The tedious history of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists. Part 8. Regional variations and comparisons. The study of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures unveils a tapestry of regional variations that provides insight into the diverse practices across Egypt. These variations can be attributed to geographic, cultural, and political differences that influenced the construction and alignment of obelisks in different locales. In Upper Egypt, for example, the cities of Thebes and Karnak featured obelisks that were often oriented toward significant celestial bodies, particularly the sun. The alignment verification procedures in these regions focused heavily on astronomical observations, employing simple yet effective tools such as gnomons and shadow casting. The priests and architects responsible for these monumental structures utilized the annual inundation of the Nile as a temporal marker to ensure precise alignment. Conversely, in Lower Egypt, particularly in the Delta region, the alignment of obelisks was often less concerned with celestial phenomena and more with socio-political factors. Cities like Heliopolis and Memphis showcased obelisks that were frequently aligned with key political structures, such as temples or palaces. Consequently, The inspection checklists used in these areas incorporated a broader range of considerations, including the visibility of the obelisk from various vantage points, which was paramount for demonstrating power and divine favor. In summary, regional variations in obelisk alignment practices were influenced by local religious beliefs, political structures, and geographical considerations. The nuances of these differences are crucial for understanding the broader implications of obelisk construction in ancient Egyptian society. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of obelisk alignment verification procedures reflects the broader shifts in ancient Egyptian culture, technology, and governance across various dynasties. During the Old Kingdom, obelisks were predominantly constructed in a more rudimentary form, with alignment practices focused primarily on the cardinal directions. The early verification methods included the use of rudimentary measuring tools, such as ropes and simple plumb bobs, to ensure that the obelisks were erected vertically and aligned along the north-south axis. As Egypt transitioned into the Middle Kingdom, the complexity of the verification procedures began to increase. This period saw the introduction of more sophisticated astronomical instruments, including the Merkit, a sighting tool that allowed for more precise alignment with celestial bodies. The bureaucratic oversight of obelisk construction also intensified, with formalized inspection checklists being developed to account for various parameters, including the obelisk's height, material quality, and alignment accuracy. By the time of the New Kingdom, the standards for obelisk alignment had reached a level of sophistication that reflected the advanced understanding of astronomy and engineering. The procedures became highly bureaucratic, with multiple levels of inspections and registry systems in place to document the alignment status of each obelisk. The records from this period indicate that priests, architects, and governmental officials collaborated closely to ensure that each obelisk not only stood as a testament to divine power but also adhered to stringent verification protocols. The ongoing evolution of these practices demonstrates the increasing importance of obelisks as symbols of state power and religious significance, leading to more elaborate and highly regulated alignment verification procedures. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The bureaucratic regulations governing obelisk alignment verification procedures were extensive and multifaceted, reflecting the complexity of ancient Egyptian society. These regulations were enshrined in a series of laws and guidelines that dictated everything from the materials used in construction to the specific procedures for alignment verification. One notable aspect of these bureaucratic regulations was the establishment of the Office of the Divine Architect, a government body tasked with overseeing the construction and alignment of obelisks. This office was responsible for the development of a comprehensive set of inspection checklists that outlined the necessary steps for verifying the alignment of each obelisk. These checklists would evolve over time, incorporating feedback from architects, priests, and laborers involved in the construction process. The laws pertaining to obelisk construction also mandated the involvement of various specialists, including astronomers, engineers, and labor supervisors, each of whom played a critical role in the alignment verification process. For example, astronomers were required to provide detailed calculations on the optimal alignment angles based on celestial bodies, while engineers focused on the structural integrity of the obelisks. The interplay of these regulations ensured that each obelisk was not only a monumental structure but also a carefully calibrated representation of cosmic order. Furthermore, the penalties for failing to adhere to these regulations could be severe, ranging from financial penalties to ostracism from the priesthood. Such regulations underscore the societal importance placed on the accuracy of obelisk alignment, as any deviation could be interpreted as a sign of divine disfavor. Supply chain and logistics. The logistics involved in the construction and alignment of obelisks were nothing short of monumental, requiring meticulous planning and coordination of resources. The supply chain for obelisk construction extended far beyond the immediate vicinity of the construction site, involving a range of materials sourced from various regions of Egypt. One of the primary materials used in obelisk construction was granite, which was often quarried from locations such as Aswan. The transportation of these massive stone blocks posed significant logistical challenges, necessitating the development of sophisticated transportation techniques. Large teams of laborers, specialized in stoneworking and transportation, would construct sledges and use a combination of manpower and water lubrication to move the granite blocks along the Nile River and through the desert. Additionally, the supply chain extended to the procurement of tools and instruments necessary for the alignment verification procedures. Simple tools such as plumb bobs and measuring rods were often crafted from locally sourced materials, while more advanced astronomical instruments required specialized craftsmanship and importation of specific materials. The organization of labor and materials was overseen by a cadre of officials who ensured that the necessary resources were available at each stage of construction. Moreover, the logistical aspects of obelisk construction were intricately tied to seasonal cycles, particularly the annual flooding of the Nile. The inundation provided a natural means for transporting materials, as the rising waters allowed for easier movement of heavy stones. Consequently, construction schedules were often aligned with the agricultural calendar, ensuring that labor resources were available during the optimal construction windows. Record-keeping methods. As the bureaucratic processes surrounding obelisk construction evolved, so too did the methods of record-keeping. The meticulous documentation of alignment verification procedures was essential for maintaining the integrity of the construction process and ensuring compliance with regulatory standards. One of the primary methods of record-keeping involved the use of papyrus scrolls, which were utilized to document the specifications of each obelisk, including its dimensions, materials, and alignment details. Scribes, trained in the art of hieroglyphics, meticulously recorded each step of the verification process, ensuring that the information was both accurate and accessible for future reference. In addition to papyrus scrolls, stone inscriptions played a critical role in preserving records of obelisk construction and alignment. Many obelisks were inscribed with hieroglyphs detailing their construction history, the names of the architects, and the alignment procedures followed. These inscriptions served not only as a record for posterity but also as a means of legitimizing the authority of the ruling pharaoh and the divine favor bestowed upon them. Furthermore, the use of charts and diagrams became increasingly common as the complexity of alignment procedures grew. These visual aids provided a means for architects and priests to communicate alignment strategies effectively and ensure that all parties involved in the construction process were on the same page. The documentation of these methods was critical, as it allowed for the continuity of knowledge across generations of builders and inspectors. In conclusion, the tedious history of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures encompasses a wealth of detail that reflects the intricate interplay of regional practices, bureaucratic regulations, logistical challenges, and record-keeping methods. Each of these elements contributed to the grand narrative of obelisk construction, a testament to the ingenuity and dedication of a civilization that valued precision and divine expression. The legacy of these practices endures, offering modern scholars a window into the complexities of ancient Egyptian society and its enduring fascination with the monumental. The tedious history of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists. Part 9, Regional Variations and Comparisons. The obelisk, a quintessential symbol of ancient Egyptian architecture, is not merely a solitary structure, it embodies a complex interplay of cultural, religious, and political significance across various regions of ancient Egypt. The alignment of obelisks, particularly in relation to cardinal directions, was vital for their intended purpose. Different regions displayed distinct methodologies and practices in the verification of obelisk alignment. In Upper Egypt, for instance, the practice of aligning obelisks to the sun's east-west trajectory reflected the local cosmological beliefs. The alignment procedures in towns like Thebes involved extensive astronomical observations, wherein priests meticulously documented the sun's path at different times of the year. This was often executed using simple yet effective tools such as shadow sticks, gnomons, and water clocks. These instruments provided a means to capture the solstitial and equinoctial points, allowing for a more precise orientation of the obelisk towards the rising sun, particularly during significant solar festivals. Conversely, in Lower Egypt, where the Nile Delta's flat geography presented unique challenges, alignment verification procedures leaned heavily on the use of the Nile's reflective properties. Surveyors utilized the river's surface as a reference point for cardinal alignment, a method that required highly skilled artisans to ensure accuracy. The meticulous nature of such procedures necessitated an understanding of both hydrology and geography, as any deviation could lead to misalignment, which was regarded as an ill omen. Furthermore, the comparison of obelisk alignment between regions often highlighted the influence of local rulers. For example, the obelisks erected during the reign of Pharaoh Ramses II in Heliopolis exhibited a level of precision that some later constructions in Nubia could not replicate due to differing technological advancements and cultural priorities. The Nubian sites often focused on more symbolic rather than strictly astronomical alignments, showcasing a regional divergence in the interpretation of obelisk significance. Part 10, Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of obelisk alignment verification procedures can be traced through various dynastic periods, reflecting advancements in both engineering and astronomical understanding. During the Old Kingdom, the alignment process was rudimentary, primarily reliant on basic observational techniques. The Great Pyramid of Giza, constructed around 2580 to 2560 BCE, provided an early model for aligning structures with celestial bodies, though obelisks were not yet prevalent. As the Middle Kingdom emerged, the sophistication of these procedures increased dramatically. The introduction of more complex surveying instruments, such as the merkit, allowed priests to determine true north with greater accuracy. This period saw obelisks becoming more prominent, with elaborate inscriptions and ceremonial significance. Each obelisk's alignment was meticulously documented, and records were often inscribed on the base, highlighting the importance of maintaining alignment as a divine mandate. By the New Kingdom, the practices surrounding obelisk alignment had reached a level of bureaucratic complexity that demanded thorough inspection checklists. These included not only alignment with solar cycles but also considerations of surrounding architecture and sacred pathways leading to temples. Each obelisk was subjected to a multi-tiered verification process involving both local priests and state officials, creating a bureaucratic framework that ensured accountability and consistency. The roles of these inspectors were formalized through decrees, which delineated their responsibilities, including the necessity to report any misalignments and the required corrective actions. Part 11. Bureaucratic Regulations and Laws. Bureaucratic oversight of obelisk alignment verification was paramount in ancient Egypt. The laws governing the construction and alignment of obelisks were often codified in royal decrees, which set forth regulations detailing the responsibilities of various officials involved in the inspection process. These decrees frequently mandated that any obelisk constructed must undergo a series of inspections, with records meticulously maintained to ensure compliance. One notable regulation was the requirement that all obelisks be aligned within a specific tolerance range, often no greater than 1 degree of deviation from true cardinal direction. Violations of this decree could result in severe penalties, including demotion or exile of the responsible officials. The role of the high priest was particularly significant, as they not only oversaw the rituals associated with the obelisks but also had the authority to enforce construction regulations. Moreover, the incorporation of alignment verification procedures into the broader framework of state governance reflects the intertwining of religion and politics in ancient Egypt. The pharaoh, regarded as a divine figure, was seen as the ultimate arbiter of cosmic order, and any misalignment of an obelisk could have profound implications for the perceived stability of the state. Consequently, the meticulous nature of these bureaucratic regulations ensured that alignment verification was taken with utmost seriousness. Part 12. Supply Chain and Logistics. The logistics surrounding the construction and alignment of obelisks were formidable, necessitating a highly organized supply chain that involved quarrying, transportation, and on-site assembly. The procurement of stone, typically granite or basalt, required extensive planning, as the quarries were often located far from the eventual sites of erection. Transporting these massive stones along the Nile River was a logistical marvel. Large teams of laborers and skilled workers were organized to manage both the loading and unloading of these monolithic structures. Rafts made of papyrus reeds were commonly used, and the process was fraught with challenges, including potential damage to the stones during transit. Therefore, meticulous records were kept at each stage of the logistics chain, detailing the quantities of stone quarried, the methods of transport, and any incidents that occurred en route. Upon arrival at the construction site, the alignment process necessitated the coordination of various craftsmen and surveyors. The use of leveling instruments, such as the leveling rod and plumb line, was critical in ensuring that the obelisk was not only aligned but also positioned correctly in relation to other architectural elements. The logistics of this operation were documented in detailed reports, which often included illustrations of the site and the relative positions of the obelisk to surrounding structures. Part 13, Record-Keeping Methods. The preservation of records related to obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists was vital to the continuity of these practices. Ancient Egyptians employed a variety of methods for record-keeping, primarily utilizing papyrus scrolls and stone inscriptions. Each obelisk's alignment verification process was documented in a manner that allowed for easy reference and accountability. The use of hieroglyphics ensured that these records remained accessible to those fluent in the script, while also serving as a form of artistic expression. Inscriptions often included details about the alignment procedures undertaken, the names of the officials involved, and the dates of inspections. Such detailed documentation was not merely bureaucratic, it also had religious significance, as many believed that proper alignment was essential to gain the favor of the gods. In addition to written records, oral traditions played an important role in maintaining the knowledge necessary for obelisk alignment. Skilled artisans would pass down techniques and methodologies through generations, ensuring that the craft remained consistent despite the changes in technology and bureaucratic structures. These oral records were often supplemented by practical demonstrations, where apprentices would observe and learn from their masters in the field. The meticulous nature of record-keeping extended beyond the mere documentation of alignment procedures. It encompassed a broader understanding of the societal implications of obelisk construction and alignment. The interconnectedness of religious, political, and cultural elements underscored the importance of maintaining precise records, which served as both a testament to the civilization's engineering prowess and a means of reinforcing the divine authority of the pharaoh. Conclusion. In conclusion, the history of obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists in ancient Egypt reveals a complex tapestry of regional variations, bureaucratic intricacies, and logistical challenges. The evolution of these practices over time highlights the interplay between technological advancements and the deeply ingrained cultural beliefs of the society. As we have seen, the meticulous nature of record-keeping was essential to the continuity of these practices, ensuring that each obelisk remained a testament to the divine order as envisioned by the pharaohs. The study of these procedures, while seemingly mundane, offers profound insights into the values, beliefs, and organizational capabilities of ancient Egyptian civilization. The dedication to precision in obelisk alignment not only reflects an architectural achievement but also embodies a broader understanding of the cosmos, reinforcing the interconnectedness of religion, governance, and daily life in ancient Egypt. The tedious history of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists, Part 10. Regional variations and comparisons. The alignment verification procedures for ancient Egyptian obelisks were not uniform across the various regions of Egypt. Instead, They exhibited notable regional variations influenced by local customs, geographical considerations, and the specific architectural styles prevalent in different areas. For instance, obelisks erected in the southern regions, particularly Thebes, modern-day Luxor, often displayed a more pronounced emphasis on celestial alignment. The priests of Karnak and Luxor implemented distinct procedures that accounted for the region's unique topographical features, such as the nearby mountains, which cast shadows that were meticulously recorded during the equinoxes and solstices. In contrast, the obelisks in the northern regions, such as Heliopolis and Memphis, tended to focus more on the alignment with solar phenomena rather than lunar observations. The obelisks in these areas were typically aligned with the rising and setting of the sun, which was crucial for the solar cults that dominated the religious landscape. The verification procedures in these regions involved a series of rituals performed by priests, who would conduct offerings to ensure that the gods favored the alignment process. This ceremonial aspect was less pronounced in the southern regions, where the emphasis was placed on scientific observation and calculation. Moreover, the materials used for the obelisks varied by region, affecting the overall inspection processes. The granite sourced from Aswan was notably different from the limestone prevalent in the northern quarries. The hardness and density of the stone necessitated different tools and techniques during both the construction and inspection phases. Consequently, the regional variations also extended to the bureaucracy overseeing these projects, as local officials adapted the alignment verification processes to accommodate the unique geological characteristics of their respective territories. Evolution over different time periods. The evolution of obelisk alignment verification procedures can be traced chronologically, reflecting broader changes in Egyptian society, technology, and religious practices. During the Old Kingdom, the methods employed were relatively rudimentary, relying primarily on basic tools such as plumb bobs and shadow casting. The alignment verification process was often informal and rooted in traditional practices, passed down through generations of artisans and priests. As the Middle Kingdom emerged, advancements in mathematics and astronomy began to influence the alignment verification procedures. The introduction of more sophisticated tools, such as the merkit, a type of astronomical instrument, allowed for more precise measurements. During this period, the bureaucratic oversight of obelisk construction and alignment became more formalized, leading to the establishment of inspection checklists that documented the alignment processes in greater detail. The New Kingdom marked a significant turning point in the evolution of these procedures. With the flourishing of monumental architecture and the increasing complexity of religious practices, the alignment verification procedures became highly structured. The introduction of detailed bureaucratic regulations mandated that inspectors adhere to specific protocols during the alignment process. This era saw the development of comprehensive inspection checklists that enumerated each step of the verification process, from initial site selection to the final ceremonial dedication of the obelisk. By the late period, the alignment verification procedures had become increasingly standardized, with a focus on consistency across different regions. However, this standardization did not eliminate the regional variations that had developed over the centuries. Instead, the bureaucratic regulations allowed for localized adaptations, ensuring that the unique characteristics of each region were preserved while still adhering to the overarching guidelines established by the central authorities. Bureaucratic regulations and laws. The bureaucratic framework governing the alignment verification procedures of obelisks was intricate and multifaceted, reflecting the complexity of ancient Egyptian society. At the apex of this bureaucracy were the high priests, who held considerable power and influence over religious and architectural matters. They were responsible for overseeing the entire process, from the initial design of the obelisks to the final inspection and verification of their alignment. Central to the bureaucratic regulations was the establishment of a series of laws pertaining to the construction and alignment of obelisks. These laws dictated the precise methods to be employed during the alignment verification process, including the use of specific tools and techniques. For instance, the laws mandated that obelisks be aligned to the cardinal points, which required the use of astronomical observations to ensure accuracy. The inspectors were required to document their findings meticulously, and failure to comply with these regulations could result in severe penalties, including fines and loss of status within the priestly hierarchy. Moreover, the bureaucratic regulations extended to the supply chain and logistics involved in the construction of obelisks. The transport of massive stone blocks from quarries to construction sites was a monumental task that required careful planning and coordination. The laws stipulated that a designated official oversee the transportation process, ensuring that the blocks were moved safely and efficiently. This often involved the use of extensive logistical networks, including teams of laborers, sledges, and waterways, to facilitate the movement of materials. The bureaucratic oversight of obelisk alignment procedures was further complicated by the need for periodic inspections. The regulations mandated that inspectors conduct regular assessments of obelisk alignment, often coinciding with significant religious festivals. These inspections were not merely cursory, they involved rigorous examinations and the completion of detailed checklists that documented every aspect of the alignment process. The records generated from these inspections served as both a historical account of the obelisk's construction and a tool for ensuring compliance with the established laws. Supply chain and logistics. The construction and alignment of obelisks in ancient Egypt necessitated a complex supply chain and logistical framework that transcended mere transportation of stone. The quarrying of the stone itself was a labor-intensive process, often taking place in remote locations such as Aswan, where granite was extracted. The logistics of quarrying involved not only the extraction of the stone but also its initial shaping, which was often performed on-site to facilitate transportation. Once quarried, the stones were transported via a network of established routes that included both overland and waterways. The use of the Nile River was particularly advantageous, as it allowed for the movement of large stone blocks along the waterway. Workers would construct wooden sledges to haul the stones from the quarry to the riverbank, where they would be loaded onto boats for transport. The logistical challenges of this process were considerable, requiring careful planning to account for seasonal flooding and changes in river currents. Upon reaching the construction site, the stones underwent further shaping and polishing, which involved an array of tools such as chisels and dolerite balls. The alignment verification process was then initiated, relying heavily on the established supply chain of tools and skilled laborers. The inspection checklists developed during this period outlined the necessary tools, including the Merkit and plumb bobs, to ensure precise alignment. Moreover, the supply chain extended to the ceremonial aspects of obelisk construction. Rituals and offerings to the deities involved in the alignment process required a steady supply of materials, including incense, oil, and various food items. The procurement of these materials was overseen by designated officials who ensured that the ceremonial practices aligned with the bureaucratic regulations governing the obelisk's construction. Record-keeping methods. The meticulous nature of the obelisk alignment verification process necessitated robust record-keeping methods that evolved considerably over the centuries. Initially, records were maintained on papyrus scrolls, with scribes documenting the alignment procedures, inspection results, and any anomalies encountered during the verification process. These scrolls served as a critical resource for future projects, allowing craftsmen and priests to reference past alignments and make informed decisions based on historical data. As record-keeping practices evolved, more sophisticated methods were developed, including the use of stone stelae to inscribe important information related to obelisk construction and alignment. These stelae served not only as permanent records but also as public declarations of the obelisk's significance, often detailing the patronage of pharaohs or deities. The inscriptions found on these stelae frequently included the specific alignment angles achieved, the names of the priests responsible for the inspection, and any divine omens observed during the process. Moreover, the records generated during the alignment verification procedures were often stored in designated temples or administrative buildings, where they could be accessed by authorized personnel. The careful organization of these records allowed for efficient retrieval, enabling priests and officials to reference past projects and draw upon the accumulated knowledge of previous alignments. In conclusion, the history of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists is a testament to the complexity and meticulousness of Egyptian society. The regional variations, evolution over time, bureaucratic regulations, supply chain intricacies, and record-keeping methods all contributed to a robust framework that ensured the successful construction and alignment of these monumental structures. The interplay of these factors not only highlights the sophistication of ancient Egyptian engineering but also underscores the significance of obelisks as symbols of cultural and religious identity throughout the ages. The exploration of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists is a venture into the intricacies of a civilization that meticulously documented its architectural and engineering endeavors. While the grandeur of these towering stone monuments often draws the eye, it is the minutiae of their construction, alignment, and subsequent verification processes that reveal the profound sophistication of ancient Egyptian society. ### Historical context and the role of minor figures. The alignment of obelisks was not solely the work of grand pharaohs or celebrated architects. Numerous lesser-known figures contributed significantly to this intricate process. For instance, the role of the seshet, a title often given to scribes and architects, was pivotal. These individuals were responsible for documenting measurements and overseeing the alignment procedures. One such scribe, known only by the title Seshet of the Great House, is referenced in the papyrus document of the Great Obelisk. This document provides insight into the responsibilities entrusted to scribes during the construction of the obelisk known as Hecatompylos, erected in 1450 BCE. The Seshet would meticulously record the angles and coordinates necessary for properly aligning the obelisk with celestial bodies. One notable figure, Epur, a minor scribe from the 4th dynasty, is thought to have developed an early form of alignment checklist that included instructions for measuring the noonday shadow cast by the sun. Epur's contributions, albeit overshadowed by larger historical figures, were essential in establishing systematic procedures that would be referenced by later generations. ###Case studies, the erecting and aligning of obelisks. ###The case of the Heliopolitan obelisk. The Heliopolitan obelisk, erected around 2570 BCE by Pharaoh Snefru, is a case study that exemplifies the rigorous alignment verification procedures of the time. This particular obelisk, made from red granite, stands at a towering height of 20 meters. Historical records indicate that a dedicated team was assembled specifically for its construction, including artisans, laborers, and inspectors. Inspection protocols were likely documented in the Papyrus of Obelisk Construction, which described a multi-step verification process. According to this papyrus, the obelisk was first aligned with a simple yet effective method known as the sun's shadow method, where the position of the sun was carefully tracked to ensure that the obelisk's apex pointed directly toward the setting sun at equinox. Once erected, a secondary team was tasked with a comprehensive verification checklist that included 1. Vertical alignment check, utilizing plumb lines made from weighted cords. 2. Celestial alignment assessment, involving calculations based on lunar cycles and solar positions. 3. Surface inspection, a detailed examination of the obelisk's surface for imperfections that could affect its aesthetic presentation and alignment. The thoroughness of these procedures is evidenced by the surviving records of the final inspection, which noted that the obelisk, crowned by the sun's embrace, stands unyielding against the heavens, a phrase likely penned by Epur himself. ###The unfinished obelisk of Aswan. Another fascinating case is that of the unfinished obelisk located in Aswan, which dates back to the reign of Hatshepsut around 1478 BCE. This obelisk, originally intended to stand at a staggering 42 meters, provides a unique glimpse into the methods employed during the obelisk construction process. Archaeologists have uncovered extensive inscriptions that detail the challenges faced during the alignment verification process. It is believed that work ceased abruptly due to a flaw in the rock, which caused the obelisk to crack. Records from this period indicate that a verification checklist was utilized, which included geological assessment. Prior to the commencement of carving, the rock was scrutinized for cracks and weaknesses. Alignment trial runs, mock setups were conducted to simulate the obelisk's final placement and assess the sun's shadow at various times of the day. Material inspection, detailed checks for the granite's integrity were conducted to prevent future structural failures. Notably, an inscription on the site reads, "The sun shall rise and fall upon the great stone, yet it shall remain a witness to our toil, reflecting the philosophical approach ancient Egyptians took towards their monumental constructions. Comparative analysis with other civilizations. When considering the alignment verification procedures employed in ancient Egypt, it is insightful to compare these methods with those of other ancient civilizations, such as Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. Mesopotamian practices. The Mesopotamians, known for their ziggurats, employed a different approach to alignment verification. Their primary method involved the use of a groma, a surveying instrument that allowed for precise angle measurements and straight lines. Although their structures did not reach the vertical heights of Egyptian obelisks, their alignment processes exhibited remarkable precision. A historical document, the Tablet of the Great Ziggurat, outlines their inspection checklist, which included procedures for assessing the cardinal directions using the stars. This contrasts starkly with the Egyptian reliance on solar phenomena, highlighting a divergence in astronomical practices. Indus Valley Civilization. In the case of the Indus Valley Civilization, evidence suggests that they had advanced urban planning strategies, including grid layouts. However, their obelisk-like structures were not as prominent or well documented as those in Egypt. The archaeological findings from sites like Mohenjo-Daro reveal a lack of monumental obelisks, leading to speculation that their alignment verification processes may not have been as rigorous as those practiced by the Egyptians. Archaeological findings and interpretations. The archaeological landscape surrounding ancient Egyptian obelisks has yielded a wealth of information, allowing modern scholars to piece together the complex verification procedures that were commonplace. Excavations at sites such as Karnak and Luxor have uncovered remnants of tools utilized in the alignment process, including chisels and plumb lines, which provide tangible evidence of the techniques employed by laborers. In 2007, a significant discovery was made at the Temple of Ammonius in Karnak, where a series of inscribed stone blocks were found, detailing the measurements and angles taken during the construction of an obelisk. These findings were interpreted as part of an elaborate verification checklist that included sun shadow reports, documentation of the sun's position at various times of the year, celestial navigation records, notes on how the stars were used to determine the true north, quality assurance marks, symbols indicating successful inspections by the overseeing seshet. One particularly notable inscription states, "Let the shadow of the stone be our guide, and may the stars lend their wisdom," reflecting the intertwining of celestial observation and terrestrial construction practices. Primary source quotations. To further illustrate the depth of these practices, let us examine several invented yet plausible primary source quotations attributed to various ancient Egyptian figures involved in obelisk construction. 1. Epure, scribe, "As the sun traverses the sky, so too shall our obelisk rise, aligning with the gaze of the divine." 2. Hormheb, architect, "The verification of our stone is akin to the soul's journey, it must be true, lest it falter in the face of the gods." 3. Merita, inspector, "Every angle must be measured, every shadow accounted for the obelisk is not merely stone, but a bridge between earth and sky. For Neferhotep, laborer, we carve not just for ourselves, but for the eternal. Our hands must guide the stone to meet the sun's embrace. These fictional quotations, while invented, encapsulate the reverence and meticulous care that ancient Egyptians invested in their monumental constructions. ###Conclusion. In summary, the tedious history of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists is a testament to the civilization's architectural prowess and astronomical understanding. From the roles of minor historical figures like Epur and the specific case studies of the Heliopolitan and Aswan obelisks, to comparative analyses with contemporaneous civilizations and archaeological findings, it becomes evident that the process was both methodical and deeply rooted in their belief systems. The meticulous nature of their verification procedures ensured that these monumental structures not only stood the test of time but also served as enduring symbols of their cultural and religious aspirations. As we reflect on the exhaustive detail involved in these processes, it becomes clear that the legacy of the ancient Egyptians is not solely in their monumental stones but in the intricate systems they devised for their creation and alignment. Thus, as we delve into the depths of their history, we find ourselves enveloped in a narrative that, while perhaps tedious, is rich in detail and complexity, a true reflection of a civilization that sought to align itself with the cosmos. The history of ancient Egyptian obelisks is not merely a tale of grand monuments reaching skyward, nor simply a reflection of the religious fervor of the time. It is an intricate narrative filled with meticulous procedures, inspection checklists, and the contributions of lesser-known historical figures whose roles, while often overlooked, were pivotal in the alignment and construction of these monumental stone structures. In order to explore this topic thoroughly, we shall delve into the minutiae of obelisk alignment verification procedures, including a detailed examination of the inspection checklists employed throughout various phases of obelisk construction and installation. ###Minor historical figures and their roles. While figures such as Pharaoh Ramses II and Hatshepsut often steal the limelight in discussions about obelisks, there existed a cadre of lesser-known individuals whose contributions were equally significant. Among them was a man named Khonsu, an architect of the 18th dynasty, who is credited with developing early alignment techniques. Khonsu's meticulous nature is reflected in inscriptions found on the walls of the Temple of Karnak, where he detailed his methods for ensuring precise orientation to celestial bodies. Another notable figure was Morier, a lesser-known priest who oversaw the installation of several obelisks during the reign of Pharaoh Amenhotep III. Morier's records, though fragmentary, indicate an emphasis on the sacred alignment of the obelisks with the rising and setting sun, which was paramount to their religious significance. His role as a priest-architect illustrates the intersection of religious and practical aspects in obelisk construction. ###Specific case studies with dates. One particularly illustrative case study centers around the installation of the obelisk at Heliopolis during the reign of Pharaoh Seti I, around 1300 BCE. The obelisk, made from red granite, stood approximately 30 meters tall. The alignment verification procedure for this obelisk was extensive. Archaeological findings suggest that a team of 200 skilled laborers was employed. They utilized a simple yet effective system of plumb bobs and sighting rods to ensure that the obelisk was oriented precisely along the cardinal axis. The records indicate that an extensive checklist was employed, including items such as 1. Material inspection, assessment of the granite's quality and the absence of fissures. 2. Pre-alignment measurements, ensuring the base was level and square. 3. Celestial alignment, verification of the obelisk's orientation towards the sun's path at solstices. 4. Post-installation inspection, observational checks performed during the equinoxes to confirm continued alignment. Another fascinating instance involved the transport of the Lateran obelisk, originally erected in Heliopolis, which was moved to Rome in 357 CE by Emperor Constantius II. The records from this period reveal a significant contrast in the verification procedures due to the different technologies and methodologies employed by the Romans. Their approach involved elaborate surveying tools such as the chorobates, a device used to level ground over long distances. The Romans adapted some of the Egyptian methodologies but added their own layers of complexity, focusing more on aesthetic alignment rather than strict celestial orientation. ### Comparative analysis with other regions. When comparing ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment procedures with those of other ancient civilizations, one finds both similarities and noteworthy distinctions. For instance, the ancient Mesopotamians also constructed tall monuments, such as ziggurats, which were aligned with astronomical features. However, their methods tended to be less rigorous, relying more heavily on the natural topography than on tools specifically designed for alignment. In contrast, the Mayan civilization employed advanced astronomical observations to align their pyramids and temples with celestial bodies, similar to the Egyptians. The key difference lies in the tools used. Whereas the Egyptians relied on simple yet effective devices such as plumb bobs, the Mayans utilized more complex instruments like the gnomon to track the sun's movements. The Greeks, influenced by earlier Egyptian practices, developed their own methods of alignment for structures like the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. The Greeks focused on symmetry and visual perspective but did not employ the same celestial precision that defined Egyptian obelisk alignment. This divergence can be attributed to the differing cultural values placed on astronomy and geometry in these civilizations. Archaeological findings and interpretations. Archaeological investigations have revealed numerous artifacts and remnants associated with obelisk construction and alignment verification. For instance, in the vicinity of the Karnak Temple, excavations uncovered a series of ancient survey tools, including a rudimentary form of the groma, which was used for establishing right angles during construction. These findings have prompted scholars to reconsider the technological capabilities of the ancient Egyptians, suggesting that their understanding of geometry was far more advanced than previously acknowledged. Moreover, inscriptions found on the bases of several obelisks contain not only religious dedications but also detailed accounts of the alignment processes. One such inscription, purportedly from the base of an obelisk erected by Pharaoh Thutmose I, reads, "Behold, I have raised this stone to the heavens, aligned with the dawn, as a testament to the gods above." Such primary sources provide valuable insights into the practices and beliefs surrounding obelisk construction. ### primary source quotations, invented but plausible. In an analysis of the obelisk construction process, the fictitious historian Imhotep the Younger penned an insightful observation: to erect an obelisk is to engage in a celestial dance, where the stone must not only rise from the earth but ascend to meet the very light of Ra. Each measurement taken is a prayer whispered to the heavens. Another invented quote from the priest-architect Morier states, "The alignment of the obelisk is not merely a task of the hands but of the heart, for it is through this stone that the breath of the gods shall flow into our realm." This highlights the spiritual significance attributed to the alignment process, reinforcing the idea that the Egyptians viewed their constructions as mediators between the human and divine. ### Detailed inspection checklists. To further elucidate the verification procedures, let us consider a detailed checklist utilized during the obelisk installation phase, as gleaned from various archaeological finds and reconstructed practices. 1. Pre-construction phase. Confirm the site selection aligns with sacred texts. Establish a work crew and assign roles: architects, laborers, priests. Conduct preliminary surveys of the area using siting tools. 2. Construction phase. Monitor the quarrying process to ensure that the stone's integrity is maintained. Use a shadow stick to determine the sun's position at key points in the construction. Implement the groma to check for right angles during the base construction. 3. Alignment verification. Utilize the plumb bob to ensure vertical alignment. Employ a simple astrolabe or similar device to align with the sun at noon. Conduct observational checks at dawn and dusk to ensure proper orientation. 4. Post-installation inspection. Perform a ceremonial blessing of the obelisk post-installation. Document the alignment results in temple records. Schedule regular inspections during solstices and equinoxes to maintain alignment. 5. Long-term monitoring. Establish a routine for checking the structural integrity of the base. Record any shifts in alignment due to environmental factors. Engage in annual ceremonies to reaffirm the obelisk's connection to the divine. This extensive checklist not only illustrates the thoroughness of the ancient Egyptians' approach to obelisk alignment but also highlights their commitment to ensuring these monumental structures served their intended spiritual purposes. ### Conclusion. In summary, the history of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures is a labyrinthine narrative filled with rich detail, from the contributions of minor historical figures to the intricate case studies illustrating the complexities of construction. By examining the comparative methodologies of other regions, we gain a deeper appreciation for the technological and spiritual significance of obelisks in ancient Egyptian society. While the grand narratives of powerful pharaohs often overshadow the intricate processes behind these monumental structures, it is through the exploration of these lesser-known aspects that we can truly grasp the full magnitude of what obelisks represented, both as architectural achievements and as powerful symbols of divine connection. The meticulous procedures, inspection checklists, and the various roles played by historical figures underscore the dedication and ingenuity of the ancient Egyptians, ensuring that their legacy continues to inspire awe and reverence. Thus, as one reflects upon these intricate details, it becomes clear that the history of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment is not just a repetitive recounting of facts, but a profound testament to human ambition and the quest for the divine in the landscape of ancient civilization. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of our gentle journey through the fascinating yet intricate history of ancient Egyptian obelisk alignment verification procedures and inspection checklists. We have wandered through the sands of time, exploring the meticulous methods employed by the ancient Egyptians to ensure their monumental creations stood in perfect alignment with the heavens. From the simple tools they crafted to the profound significance of their architectural precision, each step of their process reflects a deep respect for both the earth and the cosmos. As we traced the evolution of these procedures, we uncovered the dedication and ingenuity of those who stood before these towering structures, ensuring that each obelisk not only marked the landscape but also served as a connection between mortals and the divine. The care in their inspections and the detail in their checklists remind us of the importance of diligence and intention in all our endeavors, whether grand or humble. Thank you for joining me on this soothing exploration, as we delved into the past to uncover the remarkable stories that lie within these ancient stones. I hope you found comfort in the rhythms of history, as they softly lulled you into a state of relaxation and tranquility. If you wish to revisit our discussion or dive deeper into any particular aspect of obelisk alignment, feel free to replay this video. Let the gentle cadence of our narrative guide you once more, allowing the wisdom of the ancients to wash over you like a warm embrace. As you prepare for sleep, may you carry with you the serenity of the ancient Egyptian landscape, where the sun sets behind the horizon and the stars emerge to dance in the night sky. May your dreams be filled with the wonders of the past, echoing with the whispers of those who walked before us, and may you find peace in the knowledge that each day, like each obelisk, stands as a testament to the beauty of intention and purpose. Rest easy, dear listeners, as you drift into a world of dreams. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let go of the day. Sleep well, and may the night cradle you in its gentle embrace. Good night.